Welcome to The Way Left. This podcast is The Orange Mad King, Invoke the 25th Amendment. So yesterday, which was Easter, for those that celebrate Easter, but we all know what Easter is. It's related to the Christian faith, Jesus rising, blah, blah, blah. Yesterday at 8 a.m. on Sunday, which I think would be East Coast time because Trump is always in Mar-a-Lago. Excuse me while I take some more caffeine. Got to get that espresso in to deal with this madness. This is what he said on Truth Social. That's his bankrupt social network that he has his orange sycophants on. I've never been on it, but he posts on there all the time, sometimes late at night. Here's what he said. Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day, all wrapped in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it, Trump wrote. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. And then he says, praise to Allah. Praise be to Allah. This is our president of the United States, who is not in a war because a war has to be approved by Congress, but he's called it a war. So he's violating the Constitution, seeking another $200 billion for special operations, not wars, because he's not in any wars, but he calls them wars, and a $1.5 trillion defense budget or Secretary of War budget or invade the world budget. This is a guy who has said the Strait of Hormuz is not important to America. Then he says, open the fucking strait. He's not worried about regime change. He has regime change. Maybe we'll do regime change. He's worried about the people in the U.S., in the Iran, the protesters, that we're going to help the people. Now he doesn't give a fuck about the people. They've already blown up one bridge. Now he's threatening to go after power plants and bridges, and to go after, he's also talked about desalination plants because of the lack of water, which are all war crimes. Right? Now, I know they'll not pay attention to international law, but they're all war crimes. This is a guy who's posts stuff with Axios to change the markets. And you can see when people do the futures or the shorts. So you know his internal people are making that kind of money. So what do we have here? We have an orange mad king. So what is the 25th Amendment? Now remember, we have a podcast on the 25th Amendment. It's called 27 Amendments. The 25th Amendment sets clear rules for what happens if the president or vice president cannot serve, including secession, temporary transfers of power, and filling vacancies. This was put in 1967. Ironically, right before Richard Nixon, the wonderful neocon that was basically impeached but left before he was impeached. Section 1, presidential secession. If the president dies, resigns, or is removed from office, the vice president automatically becomes president with full powers, not just an acting or temporary role. Okay? Dies, resigns, or is removed from office. Well, he's not dead yet. He isn't going to resign because he's the smartest fucking guy in the world. We need to remove him from office. If the president cannot, this is involuntary transfer of power. Now, he can voluntary transfer of power. This happened when Reagan was shot or sick, George W. Bush helped, etc. Section 4 of the 25th Amendment from 1967. If the president cannot or will not declare incapacity, the vice president and a majority of the cabinet or another body designated by Congress can declare the president unable to serve. The vice president then becomes acting president. If the president disputes this, Congress decides within a set time frame, requiring a 2/3 votes in both houses to keep the vice president charged. This section has never been fully invoked. Fucking invoke it. This guy's fucking whacked out. This was an invasion, incursion, excursion of choice. He has tricked the markets constantly. His sons are now putting in place drones that they're trying to sell drones. This is the biggest grift and fuck up in the history of America. Thanks, MAGA. But now even MAGA's coming on board. His approval rating's like 37%, which is basically just MAGA. He's fucked up the economy with tariffs. Oil price Let's look at what oil price is. Because he thought if he said this, it would help stuff, right? Oil price, the cost of Brent crude, so there's a difference between crude and U.S. crude, rose 1.4% to $110.60 a barrel. 1.8% for U.S. crude to $113. Diesel is almost at its highest cost ever. In San Francisco, diesel's $8 for transportation. People would say that we need to sacrifice for this. Sacrifice for what? We tore up the original contracts. We have done, and this is just not Iran. Bombing boats in Venezuela telling us there's drugs on them. And then doing double taps on them, not trying to save the survivors. We solved the nuclear crisis in June of 2025, as I talked about in a previous podcast. But now we need to go over it because they're going to bomb the shit out of us, all the nuclear weapons they've built in the last 9 months. And guess what's happening? Iran is dictating. So the Strait, just so we're clear, the Strait of Hormuz is not closed. That's the strait from the Persian Gulf where it goes through Karg Island, where oil is released. So now guess what's happening? So Iran is saying, we won't blow up ships for anybody not associated with the U.S., or you can do a bilateral deal, meaning Iran and someone else. Now, Iran is now dictating. That's why Trump is upset. And he's just going to invade and Trump. We think we already have boots on the ground in some places. We saved a military member. I'm not wishing ill will towards anybody in the military. What I'm doing is talking about directly that we need to invoke the 25th Amendment. And if not the 25th Amendment, I hate to wait for this, but after the landslide for the elections in November, which Democrats will take the House and probably take the Senate, then you invoke then you go after impeachment and then have him removed from the fucking presidency. But that might be too late. This guy's got his trigger finger on the fucking nuclear bomb. And who's his right-hand man for this? The Secretary of War, which isn't even illegal because Congress would have to approve that. He's still the Secretary of Defense, but he calls himself the Secretary of War. And what else did this motherfucker do? You know who I'm talking about, the white supremacist, Pete Hegseth. Now, how anybody approved him to go in, thanks Republicans, approved the Fox News show's host who's been proven to fucking be an alcoholic, 3 times divorced, has fucked up charities, but, you know, he did serve in some part, but also was a part of the J6ers, essentially. This guy's our head of a fucking Department of Defense. And what is that guy doing? So that guy's on TV preaching about God and Armageddon to our troops, which is against the Constitution. There's no separation in church and state. We have physically at the government level, the federal government level, are a quasi-Christian authoritarian nationalist state. Fucking evangelical fucking crazies. Marco Rubio's on TV saying, where would Iran be if they didn't put all their money into just weapons? Maybe their country would be better off and we wouldn't be here. Donald Trump, again, another reason to get rid of this motherfucker, said, we don't have any money in the federal government for childcare, healthcare, or anything else. We'll reduce federal rates, but we need to fund all the wars that we're going into. But we're not in any wars because Congress hasn't approved them. It's an orange mad king. The emperor has no fucking clothes. Back to Pete Hegseth. How many generals has Pete Hegseth fired? Has overseen a significant reshaping of military leadership, removing over a dozen senior generals and admirals across multiple branches of the U.S. military. There's also rumors that he fired somebody named General Randy George, the Army Chief of Staff, who he just removed amid tensions over personnel decisions and modernization priorities. The personnel decisions were no women and no blacks were to be approved to go up because they might have to meet with Trump. White supremacists, fucking racist, Christian, authoritarian, racist, nationalist. If you deny it, you're not fucking listening. Among the most notable finds are Army Chief of Staff General Randy George, General David Hodney, and Major General Williams Green Jr. These removals have included both 4-star generals and other high-ranking officers, often without publicly stated reasons. Now people say it's the deep state. Give me a fucking break about your deep state fucking QAnon bullshit. The deep state is the Epstein class. We'll get to that. A wider effort to refocus the military on war firing and deterrence. War fighting and deterrence. That's what we are, Secretary of War. So Donald Trump, the Orange Mad King, who doesn't read, who has changed his mind 10 times on Iran, who has destroyed their nuclear facilities, hasn't destroyed their nuclear facilities, is not worried about the uranium, is worried about the uranium, is not worried about the Strait of Hormuz, is worried about the Strait of Hormuz, is not worried about regime change, is worried about regime change. Again, I'm just stating what he said. This isn't my opinion. This is what he said. He's worried about the people in Iran. He's not worried about the people in Iran. He hates NATO. He doesn't do anything with them, but he needs NATO's help, but he doesn't need NATO's help. He needs the UK's help, but he doesn't need the UK's help. Then he makes derogatory comments about Churchill. This is the ramblings of a fucking guy that is going into dementia or Alzheimer's or both, who's believed his own rhetoric the whole time. The Orange Mad King's out of control. Invoke the 25th Amendment. But will the cabinet do that? No. But maybe Congress can get to that. But are Republicans going to do that? They're losing across the board. These guys are getting fucking crushed. But they're looking at a budget of $2.2 trillion, with $1.5 trillion of it for fucking war, and we're going to get rid of all the other things. Going to be no support for the American people. America first. This guy has lied the whole fucking time. His mind changes every 7 minutes because he's not smart enough to focus. He watches Fox News and goes, okay, I need to do that. I need to do that. I need to about Mark Levin. Invoke the 25th Amendment. Pete Hegseth got rid of the general chaplain. Guess what color he was? Black. Don't need no Christian black guy talking to me. What I need, so Pete Hegseth follows a person called Douglas Wilson, who basically wants to go back to the dark ages. Homosexuals get put to death. Women don't vote. You can have slaves. This is Pete Hegseth's spiritual advisor, or the leader of his church. His spiritual advisor has called for the death of Tallarico, who's running for Senate in Texas as a Democrat and might win, is calling for his death, that Jesus needs to save him. These are the people that are talking to Pete Hegseth. And Pete Hegseth is the right-hand man of the Orange Mad King. And what are we doing? Sitting back and letting this fucking happen. We got to do something, and we got to do something soon. Destroying the stock market for no reason. Job market's a fucking mess. Oil prices are almost double. If shit goes on more, we're going to be closer to $200 a barrel, $7 a fucking gallon. So now what's happening for Iran, which I brought up earlier. Rambling a little hype up here, but I'm fucking pissed off. I'm pissed off at Republicans and Democrats. There's Democrats on TV saying, well, it's just bad rhetoric. It's not bad rhetoric. It's ramblings of a fucking nutcase old man. Don't spin it. There's no spin. Get on there and fucking tell it how it is. Be aggressive. Don't sit back and fucking do Chuck Schumer. Well, I'm for Israel. Great. You could be for Israel. That doesn't mean we need to go in unfounded incursions, excursions, and wars. There's ways to do that. This is not the way. It's absolutely not the way. So now Iran, again, terrorist regime. We remediated a lot of that, and Israel remediated a lot of that. Some of that came at the expense of the Palestinians in the West Bank, but Hezbollah, Houthis, and Hamas somewhat remediated. Not now. Iran is now dictating who goes through the strait. So guess what others are doing? So the other thing, we have no allies left. You know why? Because we fucking abandoned them. Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, fucking Steve Bannon, Peter Thiel. They're supporting Viktor Orban in Hungary, and they have recordings of Orban's right-hand man coordinating with Putin to try to do false flags so they don't have an election. But we're supporting that right-wing guy while we're flying Putin. Again, I've gone over this before. Flying Putin's men from the Duma, their Senate, over. They're not supposed to go because of international watch list or international list, but they go to the White House. This is madness. This is not democracy. This is not good for our country. We can argue over how much we need to spend on Medicare. We can argue over how much we need to spend on alternative energies. But when the president of the United States tells you we're not going to spend anything on it, we're fucked. Because that's our money, our representatives, our president, whether you like it or not. So Iran is doing bilateral deals. So China's getting their oil. Russia's oil embargo is up. So they're getting their oil, making money. France made a bilateral deal with Iran. South Korea is doing that. Philippines is doing that. Japan's doing that. The whole world's going to do that. So what you've done is you've forced the hand of the rest of the world to deal with kind of a bad regime because they don't trust us anymore. And why fucking would they? Why would Canada trust us? Why would the EU trust us other than Orban and maybe the Slovakian fucking right-wing fucking nationalist who are coordinating with Putin, who's a murderous dictator? Again, get that fucking guy out of there. I'll deal with J.D. Vance for a while. God forbid. The guy who called him America's Hitler, who now works for him. So he's basically, J.D. Vance is America's Himmler. I think I'd probably maybe take Himmler or Hitler, but one way or the other, I think they're both out. So we've gone through Hegseth, right? Scott Bessent is on X talking about Christian theocracy, talking about Jesus is going to save us. The Treasury Secretary is talking about war. He's talking about the economy. He's talking about environment. He's talking about Jesus. What the fuck is going on? And so what you got to do is you got to get rid of the head of that. And that's the orange mad king, the orange ass clown. Get him out. Now. Now, how are you going to do that? How are you going to get those people out? Right? Trump has gotten rid of Bondi and Noam, fired him. So let's look at Bondi, the leader of the Epstein class, the lady that wouldn't even look at the victims at the Epstein hearing and talked about the $50,000 now, which is down to about 43 now, thanks to our incursion into Iran. That was going to be over in about 2 weeks. And now we're into day, 31 plus today is 37 plus February 20. We're 38 days in, well over 50 billion, probably 60 billion in to something that we didn't need to be a part of. We had a choice a long time ago. But here we are. And even if we wanted to be a part of it, we could have got Congress approval, which I don't think they would approve it. And that's why they're in. So this is his cabinet, right? We're going to have the cabinet do it. This is where the 25th Amendment probably breaks down, which is why you need Congress's intervention. Now, again, the Orange Mad King, who talked for 2.5 minutes about a fucking Sharpie, still talking about his fucking ballroom. And they're going to put in a bunker in there because he's afraid he's going to get killed. These are ramblings of a fucking Alzheimer dementia patient. And people are saying, no, we got to do this. They're not saying that. Let's look at who's up there. Who's going to help? Stephen Miller's not going to help. Now, I have this idea about a list. Stephen Miller would be on that list. You need to investigate him because he gave immunity to ICE, said they gave it. Pam Bondi's out. She would have not gotten him out. Hegseth's still there. He clearly isn't going to help. We got Lee Zeldin, the guy who's destroying the EPA. We want energy independence. This is a guy who's always back, basically a quasi-attorney for Trump out of New York. We want energy independence, but we're going to get rid of all energy except for oil and gas. That's what that's energy independence. And like Trump says, the Strait of Hormuz doesn't matter to us. We are energy independent. What he doesn't realize, it's a global market because he's an idiot. Why is our price higher here if the Strait of Hormuz doesn't matter? Why is that? I can't figure it out. Oh, that's right. We're not market independent. We just have our own oil and gas, but we shoot the price up because it's a global market. So Lee Zeldin, EPA, he ain't going to do anything. He's destroying the EPA. Now he might be up for AG after Pam Bondi's gone. Todd Blanche, assistant AG, the guy who was Donald Trump's attorney and who, with Donald Trump's help, moved who to a minimum security prison. It all leads back to something. He moved Ghislaine Maxwell from a maximum security prison to a minimum security prison after he talked to her as we just get rid of the Epstein files, which we haven't seen all the files. Todd Blanche lied on TV this weekend saying they've all been released and everything's fine, and we're not going to prosecute or go after anybody in the Epstein files. And who's connected to the Epstein files? Donald Trump. So the Orange Bad King's connected to the Epstein files. We're not going to go after that. But what we're going to do is we're going to trust this motherfucker to go into Iran with Pete Hegseth, who has destroyed the fucking Pentagon, destroyed their leadership. Kash Patel got rid of all the Iranian advisors because they had investigated Trump in Mar-a-Lago for illegal documents, top secret documents, which was true. Now, Biden should have probably been prosecuted for that, too, because he had some in his Corvette or something ridiculous. 2 old guys that shouldn't have been in charge. But this one is invading the world. We are setting back our country by a generation or 2. We were the one that patrolled the waters and saved it. Soft power, without hard power, without kinetic. We've destroyed that. The Middle East, why would you trust us? We've pushed people towards China and Russia. You need to invoke the 25th Amendment before you destroy every foundation this country's on. We've already destroyed a lot of them. We don't need money for education. We don't need money for alternative energies. Fuck, let lead back in the water. Asbestos is good. Let the Epstein class walk. Let Lutnick still be the Commerce Secretary. Another person on his fucking cabinet that was associated with the Epstein class. Let Musk destroy with Doge, get rid of USAID, get rid of, put in RFK Jr., another guy that wouldn't do anything, to put Maha in and have everybody vaccine conspiracy as fucking measles has gone rogue. Get the motherfucker out. But what are Democrats doing? They're biding their time. They're on book tours. Booker's on a book tour talking about how he might run for president. Gavin Newsom, who I think's done some good trolling, but he's on a book tour. J.D. Vance is now on a book tour. Let's talk about Christian authoritarian nationalism. He's on a book tour how he's turned into being a Catholic when he was an atheist. His wife was a Hindu. So I wonder if he goes to Catholic and she doesn't convert, does she go to heaven? What if she dies and doesn't give herself to Jesus? Think about what's going on. And it's all supported, even though he doesn't even know it, because I don't think the guy can remember fucking 3 days ago because he repeats himself or changes his mind, all supported by the Orange Mad King. The first step is get rid of the head and then vote everybody else out. But don't sit around. As George Conway from the Lincoln Project, Kellyanne Conway's ex-husband, he gets into Congress. Yeah, I'm going after impeachment. Everybody's like, well, you don't want to do that. Fuck that. Merrick Garland didn't do his job on Trump and everybody else after the J6. You need to go after these motherfuckers. Start with the 25th. If you can't get that through, put it out that you want it done. Don't sit around and pander. Well, you know, it's a bad thing, but vote against any monies for more war. They already have $1 trillion budget. They don't need more fucking money for war as we're going fucking broke. What happened to fucking conservatives, the ones that were the bastions against small government? Well, I've done that podcast starting with Reagan. There aren't any conservatives in this fucking country. There are a bunch of neoconservatives that want to invade every fucking country and watch the debt go up, but they want to talk about how they want small government. Well, Trump said it out loud. I guess this is what you want, David Frum. I guess this is what you wanted, Charlie Sykes. I know you would say you didn't, but in the end, we just want a fun fucking war. All the conservatives are now never Trumpers. Were you never Bushers? Bush, when he invaded Iraq and Afghanistan, he didn't learn from that? Didn't learn from that. Now you got Trump doing the same thing. Get him fucking out. You got Steve Bannon talking about a third election. We're going to do whatever it takes. They're going to put ICE at the polls, the voting polls, which is against the law. They're trying to get voter rolls from every state. States are the ones that control elections. That's against the law. Democracy is whittled down and it happens fast. Read Ann Applebaum. Read Tim Snyder. Read Noam Chomsky. Read it. The writing's on the fucking wall. And everybody says that wasn't with Donald Trump, like fucking Joe Rogan or Tim Dillon, all the right-wing podcasters, Sean Ryan. Even Alex Jones is saying Donald Trump is sick, that we need to pray for his soul. Candace Owens talked about the 25th Amendment. But Ben Shapiro's out there, well, I really like Ron DeSantis. He's doing great here. He's doing great in Florida. Yeah. He wants to get rid of all the taxes on the old people. It's awesome. You know, all the young people starve out. Oh, Benji Shapiro. I was bullied as a kid. So get him out. We have minions of Orange Ad King interfering in other elections across the world. Hungary, Farage in the UK, Slovakia, pandering to Putin, throwing Zelensky under the bus, pandering to Netanyahu, who should also be thrown out, and they should invoke their 25th Amendment if they have one. A guy who was fighting to stay in because he's going to go to jail for corruption, who has tried to put in his own judges. These are the type of things that we may not recover from for generations. When I talk Jennifer, I'm talking 25 to 50 years. You got Musk promoting Bukele in fucking El Salvador, talking about how freedom is about basically incarcerating people and saying that human rights are more important. You know, people don't talk about human rights correctly. You need to put people in incarceration. Bukele in El Salvador has nothing to do with human rights. He incarcerates everybody in gulags. He has filled the court. He has changed the constitution. He has basically influenced the mass media, which is what Orban is doing in Hungary. And it's what fucking the Orange Mad King wants to do. When you're suing mass media, when all you listen to is Fox, when you're suing universities, when you're taking away that Pete Hegseth has talked about, I don't want any military personnel to go to these certain schools in the Ivy League. This is authoritarianism, and it's led by the Orange Mad King, or the Orange Ass Clown, or Donald J. Trump, the fucking Nepo baby. Remember, he didn't make his money. It was given to him. He went bankrupt up to 7 times. He's been accused of sexual assault up to 30 times. He's been accused of rape multiple times. He's been sued in civil court and lost on that. He helped the insurrection on January 6th. He took top secret documents to fucking Mar-a-Lago. He's doing behind-the-scene deals on TikTok with Qatar. Qatar, the supporters of Hamas, now they're quasi, gave him a fucking jet. It all adds up. People were pissed about Hunter Biden getting $5 million for a fucking piece of art. Give me a fucking break. The Orange Mad King needs to go. 25th Amendment, or if you have to wait. But if we wait, I'm telling you, the guy's got his button. He says he's going to blow up the whole fucking country if they don't fucking come. How is that going to happen? Do you want your kids to be drafted for this fucking war, 42-17? Women and men, Joe Rogan. Do you want your girls to go fight in fucking Iran? Now, they probably won't get drafted because Pete Hegseth hates women and hates, so you're probably good if you're black. It's funny, it's going to be reverse, right? They're going to do a draft, but it can only be white people. Because the white supremacists, well, can't have any blacks in there. Or they'll put the blacks up front. I'm not kidding. This isn't a joke. This is reality. They've talked about invoking the draft. Caroline Leavitt said it. And she only says what the Orange Mad King puts on her fucking lips with her fucking lipstick on the pig. The orange lipstick. A big, thick grime of fucking oily fucking Trump. So sit back and don't think about it. Well, it'd be okay. I mean, I've talked to plenty of conservatives, talked to a guy in Sonoma, an old Jewish guy who said he was very glad that Trump won because he's going to be the peace president. Peace for who? Who? You're going to solve the Middle East, Israeli, Arab tension with Donald Trump at the helm and Pete Hegseth. You are fucking stupid. And we're stupid to believe any of it. So read the 25th Amendment. Think about impeachment and fucking removal. So some people say, well, he's already been impeached twice, he didn't get removed. That's true, because then you have to have a 2/3. Because the Republicans don't have any fucking balls. Neither do the Democrats have more balls when it comes to Trump than Republicans, but they don't have big balls either, or big balls. They don't have the fucking guts, because women are powerful too, so get off the big balls thing. You got to do it. Got to do it soon. Don't wait around. Do something. You think I'm an alarmist? Am I alarmist? Yeah, you're right. The economy's shit. If you're under 30 years old, you're kind of fucked. And you might get drafted to fight a war in Iran, an existential war, from God, our God against their God. But actually, they're the same God, because it's the Abrahamic religions. People don't understand. It's all the same God. It's just different interpretations with their fucking myths. It's the Abrahamic religions. Abraham is the founding with God. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, the three worst religions in the history of the fucking world. And we're the Christian theocracy, and they're the fucking Muslim theocracy. Are we the terrorists that Iran is? Well, no, but I don't know, blowing up kids' schools and double tapping them and blowing up boats in Venezuela and telling people in the United States that we can't afford health care or child care. We can't afford alternative energies. We only need oil and gas. We can't afford vaccine. We don't want vaccines. Tell me, is that Christian theocracy? Christian authoritarian nationalism? Doesn't sound familiar? It's coming right out of the Orange Mad King's mouth. And his fucking minions. J.D. Vance. Peter Thiel doing the Antichrist thing. Elon Musk saying he's going Christian. It's all a game, man. Get it. I could go through the list. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, pieces of shit. Susie Wiles is supposedly upset, but we don't hear anything from her anymore after she criticized the whole fucking staff and said J.D. Vance will say anything to be in a position, and then said she didn't say it. It was taken out of context, but when you listen to the whole thing, that's exactly what she said. It's all fake fucking news, dude. This is the greatest guy. He's the art of the deal. It's fake news. Donald Trump's brilliant. It's fake news. Pete Hegseth's amazing. It's fake news. Pam Bondi did a great job. She didn't prosecute one person in the Epstein class. And she got fired. So now I guess she's not great anymore. It's all fake news. Kristi Noem did an amazing job. I mean, I'm saying this out loud, and I can't believe that people would argue with that. If you want to argue about policy, maybe. But you can't argue with the Orange Mad King. You can't tell me that this is the solution. So, yeah. And as Black Sabbath would say, generals gathered in their masses, just like witches in black masses. Theocracy, not separation of church and state. The Orange Mad King and his white supremacist Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and the rest of their fucking bought-in Epstein-class minions, along with a weak Democratic Party and a Republican Party that doesn't even fucking exist. Get it right. And I thank you for watching in this episode of The Way Left.